Hi everybody, happy May, happy Jewish American Heritage Month. I'm Adam Siegel. I'm a subject bibliographer, subject specialist librarian here at the University of California, Davis University Library in the lower level, as we call it, of Shild's Library. And this month I'm here to talk to you about some of the amazing richness in our collection that is subject to the Jewish American experience. And I've talked to audiences before about our collections. This one's a little more personal for me. I'd like to tell a little story while I'm at it, so bear with me for the next 10 minutes or so while I talk about some amazing specimens from our incredible collections. So, first up, we have an amazing set of what we call ethnic hyphenated American history, most of which comes up on the second floor, and a lot of it's devoted to the immigrant experience, and it can get very geographically specific. Here's a title called, and I should say that every book here I've used. This is called Philadelphia Jewish Life, 1940 to 2000, and it is a documentary history of the Jewish American experience in a community that I know well, having grown up Jewish American in Philadelphia. As you can see, it's sort of a local social history, and it has a lot of what we call primary source materials that are probably stored at Temple University, alma mater of most of my family, and it's just a terrific exemplar of the kinds of resources that we have that cover, again, the hyphenated American experience, no matter where you're coming from. It's just a very, very, very nice example, and in my own work I found it extremely useful for documenting my own immigrant ancestral history. We're not just talking about big cities. Here's a book with a wonderful title called "And Prairie Dogs Weren't Kosher: Jewish Women in the Upper Midwest Since 1855, which is published by the Minnesota Historical Society Press. I volunteered there when I was in college. And this, it's got a nice pull quote in the back. My parents got tired of eating potatoes, and prairie dogs weren't kosher. So it's about Jews who moved to the Upper Midwest in the late 19th century. And again, this is a book that has a wonderful title. I came upon it because of my work as a bibliographer, chasing down citations. Just a terrific book, terrific, interesting book. Just shows you just how intimate the history of the immigrant experience, no matter where you're coming from, can be. Publications by historical society presses and university presses are invaluable resources for this kind of very intimate micro-historical research. And on a similar note, again, this is compiled from a bunch of resources, in this case, Dakota Diaspora, Memoirs of a Jewish Homesteader. Again, we're talking about the Upper Midwest and the Dakotas. And this, I believe, was a first-person narrative, and it's sort of like Willa Cather, if it was written by a Jewish immigrant. Again, published by a very small press. In this case, it is the alternative press. So, again, I never stop being surprised and amazed by the materials that I find in my own collection, and I've been working here for a long time. So, we've talked about the Jewish American experience from the perspective of immigrants writing in English, but what about the world that they left behind? Again, I'm going to dive back to Philadelphia and talk a little bit about from immigrant to ethnic culture, American Yiddish in South Philadelphia. My grandparents, my great-grandparents, my family's ancestors, my in-laws came to the U.S. all speaking Yiddish. It's a language that I grew up around. It's a language that I've studied. It's a language that I've worked in. And again, I am actually familiar with some of the people and places and institutions mentioned in this book, just showing that I could walk out of my office in Shields here and go downstairs to the ethnic history and find a terrific study that allows me to ground my own research, because I was working on research when I was going through this material. Again, nicely illustrated. This is Stanford University Press. Just a very nice edition and very, again, exemplary instance of the kinds of cool stuff that you can find if you're looking for anything on the hyphenated American experience. Now here's a book that's actually currently checked out to me. I'll need to turn it in. There Once Was a World, a 900-year chronicle of the Shtetl of Eishyshok by Yaffa Eliach. And this documents the world that American Jews came from, most of us, many of us. In this case, the little Lithuanian Shtetl, our small town, market town of Eishyshok. And again, this is documenting the immigrant experience before we became immigrants. It is a social history of every aspect of life in this one representative town in the Pale of Settlement, what they call the Pale of Settlement, that part of the Russian Empire where Jews were allowed to live. And again, it's been translated, much of it's been translated from Yiddish and Russian into English, and it's a very rich, possibly rich, and let's see, I've got my own stuff in here, rich example of the kind of social history, microhistory. And again, this is tremendously important for historians of all stripes. It's tremendously important for scholars of all stripes, because we can only get to the general, we can only generalize from the particulars, from the specifics. And There Once Was a World is a fantastic example of this kind. And again, I keep talking about exemplary. Again, I'm sort of coming at this today from the perspective of somebody who's been working on their own research, for whom all of this stuff has been an intimate part of my life for the past couple of years now. And again, looking at the broader cultural aspect, let's get away from social history and talk about, or at least immigrant history, and talk about cultural history. It's hard to talk about the Jewish American experience for most American Jews without talking a little bit about Yiddish. And this is one of my all-time favorite books of all time. It is Benjamin Harshav's and Barbara Harshav's American Yiddish Poetry, a bilingual anthology. UC Press, I think it's 1992 or 93. I own a copy of it, 86, Regents of the University of California. I own a copy of this book, so this is the library copy. It's a tremendous bilingual edition of American Yiddish language poetry with really masterful, beautiful translations into English. It's one of the best translations, and I say this as somebody who's a translator, of Yiddish American poetry into English that I know of. It's just a fantastic book. It should be in every library. And again, beautiful UC Press edition, with annotations, with notes, with illustrations. I just love it. So moving beyond, a little further afield, we're a science campus, we're a science library. We have a large health sciences presence, and our collections reflect that. So going a little bit further, here's a book that again, I happen to find in our collections, and I may be the first person to check it out. It's called République des Lettres. It's rabbis, writers, and Jewish doctors in Italy in the 18th century. And believe it or not, this lavish Brill edition of some 700, 800 pages in French, with a lot of Hebrew language glosses and Italian glosses and a lot of bibliographical information, was and remains a crucial source for, again, the research project that I'm working on, which is sort of documenting the history of Jewish science and medicine in Europe. And again, I didn't know this existed until I can't remember if I just looked in our catalog to see what we had, or if I actually saw a reference to this somewhere else and knew that I had to get it, and found to my delight that it was actually on the shelf. So again, our collections are so astonishingly rich that even I, who have worked here for almost 2 decades, remain astounded by what I just happened when I walk out of my office. I've talked a lot about books. I've mentioned a couple times that this was done. A lot of the books I'm showing you today are sort of personal. Basically documenting one scholar's or one couple of scholars' avenue toward their own production of knowledge, because that's one of the things that the library does. It serves as a good laboratory or workspace for the production of, incorporation and the collection of knowledge and the production of new knowledge. And in this case, all the books that I just showed you culminated in another document of the Jewish American experience, a book called Ashkenazi Herbalism, which my wife and I wrote and was published last year by Atlantic Press. I'm sorry. But this is actually this is the first study of its kind of the use of plant medicine and herbal medicine among Ashkenazi Jewry anywhere in the world. And it couldn't have been written, it literally could not have been written without the collections that you see around you, without the books that I found on the shelves here, some of which are still checked out to me. And happy May, happy Jewish American Heritage Month, and thanks for talking to me today, let me talk to you today.